Okay, great comeback, right? Okay, so we are already done in discussing the hormone system. Okay, and then we'll be able to talk right now, far away from the topic. It's no longer health science in connection to biochemistry, but still related to science. Okay, it's still connected to pure science, actually. Okay, it's gonna be like that. Okay? So let's put this vlogging and live streaming in a diversification point of view. Diversity, meaning to say not limited to one specific topic or one specific subject. It should be diversified. Ganon. Okay, the title for this is, it's gonna be related now to OSH. Actually, guys, it's my personal choice not to vlog and to live stream, occupational safety and health because I've been doing this for, for 14 years above. And it looks like it's very, boring for me to do this over and over again because this has been my career path after changing from chemical engineer field to OSH engineer field, something like that. So I decided, well, because I've been already working in a chemical engineer field before, as I told you, in a beverage industry, food and beverage industry, a multinational company, Coca-Cola Bottlers Philippines Incorporated. Okay, so I've been a quality product engineer in the QA department, quality assurance department, something like that. Okay, and then I'd also worked, as a chemical engineer inspecting lines to lines in the process lines in GMC, General Milling Corporation, something like that. I did not stay longer there, but what I'm trying to point out is I have experience of related chemical engineering job and also being a chemical analyst also in Mactan Rock Industries. Okay, CAMROC or Mactan Rock Industries in Mapalapa City. So we used to analyze different types of water sources. It could be cooling water line, boiling water line, process line, potable water line, fire water line, and we're going to analyze the different water parameters and water analysis. Example, the iron, total dissolved solids, chlorides, TTS, right? Mga ganun, di ba? The turbidity, the pH, the measures of acidity and basicity, and a whole lot more. Something sort of microbiological analysis. Okay, that was long time ago after my graduation. No, not after my graduation because I prepared for the board examination, right? It took me 1 year for my preparation, something like that. And then when I'm already a registered chemical engineer, I'd work really in my field, being on the chemical engineering field or specialization. So it's not really a regret to shift to the particular, field because I love really, mentoring. I really love really sharing of information. It's gonna be my forte to do this. In fact, when I graduated in my Cebu Institute of Technology as a graduate of US Chemical Engineering, I'd rather, plan to become one of the instructors. Right? I applied really to become an instructor before, but it required me to have blah blah blah, masterals like that, units, something like that. But they said it's okay, but you have to have experimental only to give you 8 units, 10 units, and then we can give you another units, and then little by little you can take masteral, and then your units will be increased like that. And then in that system, it's regulating in my brain cells. It seems that it's really tasky for me to do that, and then we don't have enough also to proceed for schooling unless I am a scholar for master studies, right? And then, my plan changes. That's why I'm really in the industry. Okay, I did not proceed to become an instructor. But that was really the first move for me when I was graduating in my college days in BS Chemical Engineering Department. Ganon! O diba? So, ganon siya. Okay, so to cut the story short, I am now in the OSS field, and I am really enjoying also because handling of chemical substances and hazardous substances is one also of the field of OSH, and at the same time also most of the processes, physical and chemical processes also. So really, a chemical engineer is an advantage. Okay, really, especially for the process chemistry of different substances, chemical substances or whatever. So it's in this area that I can be able to use my technical knowledge with regards to process chemistry, both physical and chemical separation process. Nasabi na po nila, guys. Okay. Ano, makakaloka, di ba? Okay. It's gonna be like that. So actually, I also applied a lot of process engineers, but I was not lucky enough to proceed for another level. Okay, they did not invite me to be on on the second step, on the third step, like that. Okay, I would rather, landed to become a safety engineer because at that time also, I started my OSH field in the abroad na talaga siya. Okay? Like that. Nakakaloka. Okay? But, my first abroad is not really on the OSH. Okay, I was still in the QA department, also Quality Assurance Department in Taiwan, Republic of China. But the product is not a chemical product. The product is an electronic industry. But I am also one of the QA officer there, assigned in the QA department. Okay, like that. And that was my first experience related to a quality control job or quality assurance job, but it's in electronic industry. But fine, it's okay, right? Because chemical engineer also studying electronics. It's driven with electrons, right? So I can also easily adapt the concept of semiconductors, electricity, because we study that a lot also in our subjects. That's part of our subject. We study a lot of electroplating, the computation, how to electroplate the metals, the metallurgical, blah, 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 so and so. So coverage po na sa chemical engineering, ano may anak. Okay, that's why I did not found difficulty also to be one of the QA staffs of Taoyuan Qingpun Industrial Corporation and Taiwan, Republic of China. Oh my gosh. Okay, that was 3 years. Okay? Moto siya, guys. Okay? Diba? And after that, ganon, gusto ko na mag-chef ng field. OSH na. After that, until now. Okay? Like, napagsugod ko OSH sa state of Qatar. And after that, Saudi Arabia. And after that, United Arab Emirates. And after that, going back again to Saudi Arabia. And after that also, going back to state of Qatar. And after that, going back to Saudi Arabia. Now, at your service. Oh my gosh. To cut the story short. Oh my gosh. It's a roller coaster, but majority of my experiences is in the Middle East. Okay, only one in Asia, Taiwan. And of course, in my country of origin, in the Philippines, of course. My first experience in my specialized career profession as a registered chemical engineer. Guys. But I love really the passion of teaching, something like that, mentoring, reporting, something like that, or making reports or whatever, or any documentation or any procedures or what, name it. But the only problem is I am very detailed. That's my weakness. I am very, very detailed. I'm not really that direct to the point. Sorry, because we are trained by that in our high school education. Because I am trained in journalism. We are taught how to write articles, grammar, something like that, and then a lot of types of, writing and articles. Editorial writing, feature writing, news writing, like that. So a lot, essays, poetry, how to compose a song, like that. So train me, anak, guys. Okay, and then we've been competing to different places also during my time, in my high school days. Then we compete also in regional level competition. It's not only really in science, but also in the, as I told you, I love English, science, something like, but I don't love mathematics. It's only the average. But I can manage that somewhere along the way. Right? Okay, mula siya guys. Mula ako mga 40. Charot. Charot lang. Okay. Really? Okay. Makapagod ka. Okay guys. So for the record, I won editorial writing contest and I won essay writing contest. Okay? Like that. And I will never forget that for the rest of my life. Ciao. Okay. Going back to my discussion, too much with presenting my, my personal confession regarding my achievements. Academic achievements, right? It could be, right? Okay, now going back to the topic specifically, the title is, murag din ako kailangan pang mag-prepare for this, okay? Again, as usual, on the spot live stream, okay? Like that. Di nyo ko maasahan guys na mag-live stream or mag-vlogging in a very quick manner because I don't have to prepare to be systematized and all this. This is always on the spot. Really, I don't prepare anything. I just have to be spontaneous. What comes on my mouth is what you get. Okay? I don't love to prepare to script that out just to please everybody that I'm good with what I am doing. So what I am trying to say is what you get. What you see in me is what you get. Okay, something like that. Okay? Okay, what you describe is what you get out. Something like that. Oh my gosh. Okay, but other my batchmates before, really, they are talking about me that I'm joining a debate contest. But actually, I don't remember that I joined a debate contest when I was in high school in my college days. I'll never try. I tried to join declination contest and oratorical contest. Because, as I said, I love English. I think except for a debate. I think that was not a debate contest. That was only, what do you call this? Only you ran for an officer for a school. What do you call that one? A PTA officer. Not PTA because that's parents. Sa school ba? Kanang may mga president, vice president. I was running that also before. Like, di ba? You have to campaign, you have to talk to the students to really vote for me, something like that, and you'll be able to speak in the stage, in the bigger stage. A lot of students are in front of you to discuss your platforms also regarding the school. So, yung anak ko, hindi ko maawa sa mga extracurricular activities, something like that. But I don't remember I joined debate. Somebody is, circulating that information. I never joined debate contest, guys. Okay, they are really talking about me about that, but I don't remember. But I remembered I joined oratorical contest. Okay? Like that. So those are great experiences for me and it really help a lot also for you. Okay. Ako lang yung weakness, guys, is, detailed. Detailed and elaborative. Okay, that's my weakness. I cannot extract in a short way of, of presenting my content. Muna siya akong weakness. What comes in my mouth, hindi na siya goes. Okay, this is ako na siya is-space na kasi dapat introduction. So this is really, okay, my expertise, of course. This is chemical safety. My gosh, I hate drugs. Okay. Ay, shout out pala to Engineer Timoteo Idolantes. Pinag-isipan ko pa. Char! Chemical safety. He's recommending me to take a Masters of Chemistry. Okay, in the future, he told me like that. Okay, but I don't really have the desire to proceed for Masters in Chemistry because I've already started Masters in Environmental Science in the University of San Carlos, Calamba, Cebu. So, sayang di ba kung hindi na ako continue. But I still have to think because you love talaga ako on chemistry. Char! Get a point? Oh my gosh. So, chemical safety. Okay, ganon. Oh, di ba? So, who can explain for this two terminologies, chemicals and safety. Ganon. So, chemicals, that's too general, right? So it applies to all substances, right? It could be liquid, solid, and gas. Automatically, okay, by default, those are chemicals. Okay? Even water is considered to be a chemical. Why? Because it's composed of oxygen gas and hydrogen gas. And hydrogen and oxygen are examples of chemicals. Chemicals are not limiting only to powder or poisons that we see in the chemical laboratory in the universities or in the schools. That's not limited to that. Okay, because you have also good and positive chemicals that we encounter day by day, which is water, and water is life. Okay, water itself is a chemical substance. Okay, a molecule composed of hydrogen gas and oxygen gas, something like that. So because others will interpret, especially if their course is not related to science or they are not really chemical engineering graduate, you will judge that, for example, this one, it's not chemical like that. So because what we think of chemicals is always hazardous. Okay, the labeled chemicals as hazardous always what's in their mind. Okay, but there are a lot of chemicals that are beneficial to the health system of the people and for the welfare of the community and in the society also as well, and also for the improvement of the economy of different countries all over the world, especially for the industrialization through infrastructures. Chemicals are really very important. Okay, from mixing the concrete, the water to have a cement concrete wall in the building and the foundation, it's still chemicals the civil engineers are using. Okay, or labor, working laborers, how to build a house, water, concrete, like that is already chemicals itself. Okay, the sand is already a chemical. That's mainly silicate or silica, SiO2. Okay, the largest component of the soil is silicon, and the largest component of a soil or ground is silica, SiO2. I always remember this, guys. I share this to you because this came out in the board examination before. Okay, and I answered it correctly. I answered silicon. Because silicon is a component of silica. If you try to extract that in a silica compound, right? Silica and oxygen, if you go to the laboratory to conduct a sampling, and then you will be able to present your sample and do a testing for that, or analysis test, then you can obtain a silica itself, silicon and oxygen. Of course, oxygen will just evaporate to the atmosphere, but a silicon will remain in your beaker, flask, or it could be a separatory funnel or whatever, graduated cylinder. Or it depends on the chemical apparatus, the glassware you are using inside the chemical laboratory, something like that. Because it is solid really, the silicon Si. Okay? Of course, the oxygen gas will evaporate because that's gas. You get the point? Ganon. Alam nga mo, precipitate ang gas. Charot. During the decomposition test, analysis test. Okay? So, sa akong brain cells during the board examination. Then, thanks to God, nakuha na ko ang answer. Okay? Ganon siya, guys. Okay? So, medyo na ako siya kalimtan, kanang silicone, ganon mga sand. Okay, kinamigawas mo na siya sa mga examination. Okay, going back. Okay, nilayo ko. So, kung saan nagsasabi, sa grabe na ba kayo kung makadiscuss? No, parang walang bukas. So, akong i-time frame. Dili ko madalag mga scripted. Kaya ano, my time really is, very lengthy. Mudi ko kaya i-manipulate. Charot lang. Okay, we'll be doing the introduction and teaching you the flow on how to discuss, right? Okay, the first thing to discuss is the introduction, okay, and after that, okay, so you go to the content, and after that, you go to the summary, okay? Actually, there are three parts only, but under introduction, there's a lot there. You have the objectives, the learning outcomes, like it's in the introduction, after the introduction, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, let's say, objectives, goals, purpose, pareho na siya, and learning outcomes. Ganon. So may mong tuyo o tumong why you did this, topic, live training and vlogging. This is only doing in a systematized way, but actually I'm not really following this every time when I vlog. I'm just showing you the appropriateness. Appropriateness is a term for that. Really. The preciseness and the appropriateness and how to do the vlogging, the live streaming in a systematized way or scripted way. Scripted meaning you studied what to do, first step, second step, third step, gano'n. Okay, but I don't love that, okay? Just for the sake of this conversation, okay? And number 1.3, you have also to discuss also a little bit the venue, gano'n, and then the time coverage, how to finish, and also you discuss also in here your profession, how you relate your course to this particular topic, how many years you are doing this for the rest of your life, and ganon, and then you introduce yourself to the audience, something like it's still part of your introduction. Okay? After the learning outcomes, and then the maximum time it will be allotted for your, discussion, something like that. Okay, and after that, the content, a series of significant, chronological listing of main points of what you are talking that relates or pertains to your subject matter. Ganon. Muna siya dihanan ng mga what definition, terminologies, mga categories, mga types, then you have to discuss that. Two categories of blah blah blah, two classifications of blah blah blah, two kinds of blah 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 blah, two types of blah blah blah, and you have to discuss that systematically. Okay? Step by step, something like in the content na siya, ha? And sometimes also in the content, you have also to present data, statistical analysis to prove the validity of what you are talking in statements and in paragraphs and in sentences. Because normally you will be able to have your PowerPoint slides. It's going to be a template that you'll be able to use in the training or whatever. Something like in a certain, symposium, auditorium, or a conference room. Something like that. You have to show your data, statistical analysis. You can present that by in a table, by a graph, and you can present that also by percentages, or quantifiable. If you are dealing your discussion with math, then show in terms of grams, something like that. If you are dealing too much with the physical properties of different substances, like pressure and temperature, you have to put that one. 10 degrees Celsius, 20 degrees Celsius, you have to display that in your table or in a paragraph. So that's data statistical analysis. Okay, data could either be a table or a paragraph. Yeah. Data or a graph. Sorry, not paragraph, graph. Ganun kung paragraph, di ba? Data could be expressed in a table, in a paragraph, like that. Not paragraph, a graph talaga. Hindi ko paragraph because I am loving journalism. Di ba? Like that. Graph and table na din siya, guys. And then, you want also to inject symbols, then you can. Illustrations, schematic diagrams, flowcharts, and the flow or the sequential events or the flow of the sequential processes or the flow of the sequential operations, activities, tasks, or any chuba-chucho. Name it, as long as this is a flowchart, meaning systematic. The flow, F-L-O-W. Okay, the movement, something like that. Or the fluidity, what you are trying to emphasize in terms of drawing, representation or illustration or sketches, something like that. Okay, you know what I mean, right? It's part of the content also. Okay, and the last will be the summary. You will be summarizing everything in your content. A little bit of introduction and then in your content also, in your summary. But it is concise. Concise meaning less in brevity, meaning to say brevity, less words. The total words are not very long, okay, compared to the content. Okay, these content are very elaborative and are very detailed, something like that. Okay, and then your summary is only a straightforward statement. It could be two paragraphs or one paragraph detailing the significance of your content, something like that. Okay, muna siya. So, mura akong nagtulo sa pattern. I'm not going directly to the content of chemical safety, right? Okay, mag-time ko, mabuang ko ano. Charot. Okay. Taas pa naman kayo siya, guys. Manabot akong mga kuan. National Fire Protection Association number kuan. Ganon. OSHA standard number kuan. Ganon. Because I am very, very particular also in standards specific wise. Okay, because it could not be denied, I memorized some of the OSHA standards, really. Okay, it's not enough for me that I will never memorize. I will really memorize some specific OSHA standards, though I forgot some, but there are still, penetrated or accumulated in my brain cells. Of course, I can't memorize everything, right? Ganun siya. Basic lagi ako nangunduman, diba? Katong mga kuan 29 CFR 1926.152 how to work safety standard in construction industry. Ganon. 29 CFR 1910-119 that is a standard in general industry. CFR means Code of Federal Regulation. With the meaning of 1910, that is general industry, meaning manufacturing industry, running plant industry, any industry that produces products, running plant. But we speak of construction, that is 1926. Okay? 192, that's the standards of OSHA standards representation. So you can signify or distinguish, this is a construction industry safety standard of OSHA. This is a general industry standard of OSHA. So you have technicalities in your mind in terms or as per OSHA standards, something like that. But in NFPA, there's no division, there's no classification, only one only. For example, NFPA 70, that is electrical standards with regards to the materials being used, if it qualifies to the electrical safety requirements. Okay, like that. So NFPA number 70 or 70. Okay, electrical standards. Electrical yun napasok sa kung una-una. Tumawa ko na nung luman. Okay? So, NFPA 704. Ang sabi niya siya, guys. Okay. It is a diamond system. The standard system of, nakalimut ako. Flashback memory. Standard system. Okay. Of an identification of the, gulay. Standard system of the identification of the hazards of a chemical substances. Yes, for emergency response. NFPA 704. Muna siya ang diamond with specific colors that should be painted in the tank or in a vessel during transportation of the water tank, right? There is a diamond drawing or symbol or any, tank in the operational plant. But it depends on the plant because there are plants are not really following the international standards, especially if the plant is only supplying products in the localities that is not international in nature. So they are not obliged or they are not mandatory to put that in their tanks. Okay? Because they are only on the localized safety standard, not really forced to follow the international safety standard requirements. Or else they are just, if they are applying for ISO for that 45001, like that, or OSHA Safety Management System, or the OSHA's 18001-2007, right? Meaning OSH certification. So they will be forced to do that because there's a certificate. But if the company has no certification at all regarding that, you will not be forced to paint that on the tank. That will become a recommendation, but it's not really obligatory and mandatory to do that. Kaya wala naman may certification sa ISO 45001 sa safety or OSHA 18001-2007. You cannot force when there's no specific policy And then you cannot force anybody to follow that. As simple as that, okay? Ganon. Nadili na siya pag-awayan. Okay na. Muna siya sir ang standard. But go back to the root cause why. Okay? Ganon na siya. Okay? Kung why programa, dili ta magbuhat og mga sistema nga wala sa programa. As simple as that. Okay? Even though we know some safety requirements because we are working so many times in the construction industry, nakatrabaho 20 years dito, but you should study the specific wise company that you are working with, if they are following with a certain, ISO certifications. If their ISO certifications doesn't, apply for that, are not granted for that, then there's no reason to force things that within that ISO. Okay? ISO meaning standardization of international organization. Ganun ba yun siya? International organization. Dili man na siya international standard organization, bro. Anak man na siya bali. Ang ISO, ang meaning sa ISO. Di man na siya international standardization organization. Dili na siya na standardization of international organization. Okay? Di ba? Murag masyaka sa definition. Kaya dili siya international standardization organization. Because marong grammar man siya kung hindi mo siyang i-kuan. ISO. Kung ingon ka kay acronym man siya dapat International Standardization Organization. And then it sounds awkward. That's why we will say standardization of international organization. You get the point? So dapat pala SIO. Okay? But it is still ISO because the ISO committee agreed to declare that as that during declaring the definition of the acronym. Okay? So it is standardization of international organization. It's not international standardization organization because ISO. It's not like that. This is only the exemption of all the acronyms I've encountered in my entire life. This is the reverse. Something like that. Because there's a lot of acronyms. Mabuha ko sa mga acronyms. Okay? Sa chemical engineering pa lang, so much na talaga. Di maihap. Billions and trillions of acronyms. Especially sa OSH also. There's a lot of acronyms, my gosh. I hate drugs. Nakakaloka. Sa ni Bush pa lang, ang daming acronyms, guys. Okay? O sa, sa ayos not really, but sa talaga siya sa ni Bush. O sa katungkuan, o nga sa OSHAS nga, OSHAS 18,000 o 2007, dami din. Okay, katong mga guidelines, di ba? Nakakaloka. Okay. Umiinom sa akong kape. O, yung sa naurasa, guys. Alilin ako katugan eh, kuminom kape. Kasi kung gawin, ubunan ko. Okay, guys. Muna siya. Ako lang tapos guys, ha? I have to present my part 2. I'll be able to have my part 2 discussion on this. Because I have too much yaw-yaw talaga, guys. Tabian kay ko. Okay. So, bugo de kay ko, no? Tabian mga ko. Because they said, anoisy, anoisy, sa to? Well, kay, ang saba nga sapa, bugo. Niya, ang peaceful nga sapa, bright. Muna ilang kuan mga, according sa mga ninuno, sa mga storya-storya, muna siya ang saying equivalent na kung saba kay ka, bugo. Ya, kung dili ka saba, bright. Diba? General nga mga baloktot na mga quote or mga saying, it depends on the situation. Okay? That not would mean na kung silent ka, bright. Di lang dyan siguro kakabaw mo express or mo convey. Okay? Sa knowledge that what you have. Okay? Doesn't mean nga kung saba or noisy or loud. Ang people like me, bugo. Okay? It depends on the situation, guys. Do not generalize because there's a saying that goes like that. Okay? Kaya ang mabaw nga sapa, ang saba nga sapa, anak daw, mabugo. Ganon. And then, isa to guys, hilong na sapa, mga bright. Sure mo? Di man tanan? Muna mo disagree dyan ko. Undergo dyan ko mga debate sa una. Charot lang. Okay. Dyan ko pakabog. Wow. Kabog talaga. Okay. Ganun siya, guys. Okay. Actually, guys, ang title ni inihigayo na mata ni siya, guys. Chemical hazards and safety precautions. But I found it awkward to, to break the subject into two parts. It looks like for me it's a vague presentation of your title. It looks like you have two areas to explain. A title kasi guys, it should be at least one point to convey. Not so many like that. Or else content na siya. You get the point? For example, drug addiction leads to depression. Muna siya yung mga title. Meaning to say, one only point being discussed is about drug addiction. And the effect is depression. Then if you say, like this, drug addiction and smoking, it looks like it's a mixed up of topic already in one title. That's not a good title. It could be already a supporting on your content, not a title. Just like this. My title is Chemical Safety. Then after that, I have to discuss so many topics regarding to this chemicals and its safety-related issues. Okay, ang title na taani, naman siya, ako lang gi-revise with my own interpretation basing on journalism. I learned, okay? Naman siya, ang butang dito nga mo, niya akong Actually, nobody teaches you. This is a personal vlogging and live streaming. Nobody can control me, right? I'm just studying and sharing the technical way of writing a title like this. Actually, ang gibutang dito guys nga title, naman siya, chemical hazards, okay, and safety precaution. Okay, you are dealing with a noun and an action verb, which is a precaution. You have to act on it in order to reduce and eliminate the hazard. So it's a mix up of a subjects. You get the point? So dapat usara siya because this chemical hazard and safety precautions is under chemical safety. Later na siya sa content during discussion, it will be discussed systematically. You get the point? So this is not a good title kasi chemical hazards and safety precautions. How about the risks? Risk is an impact and it's not being discussed. If there's no risk and impact, how you can have the safety precaution? It's not enough to obtain the hazards and you don't know the impact and the consequence. Okay? Because it's in the consequence and impact or result that you could establish your safety control measures or your intervention, not on the hazards. Because hazards is talking maybe for exposure pa lang siya. Exposure. Not necessarily the effect. Okay? You got the point? This is not a good title to connect the chemical hazards and safety precaution. Okay? Ako rin di-stricto based on my journalism background. Okay? Like that. Okay. Ganon. Now, sinurasa guys, hindi gutom raba ko. Char! I-increase akong level of ghrelin and dopamine. Charot. Okay, the appetite of eating. Oh my gosh. Sabi ng mga anti-Duterte. Charot. Bakit puro Duterte? Paalis na si Duterte, BBM na naman tayo. Actually, I supported Duterte in 2016. Grabe to, nagpalit siya ng joke ko, ganon. Then ganon, nagbibigay ng mga t-shirts about Duterte. I supported him a lot. And hindi ako nabigo. Char! Because he is really a strong leader for me. Now, paalis na kasi siya, and BBM will come. Okay? So I really support also BBM. Okay? You get the point? Oh, muna siya nagtabo. Okay. And now I still don't know what I'm going to do or to plan expressing my support to BBM. Okay? Of course, sa Facebook, support naman na siya, guys. Right? But I still have to make something na medyo, ano siya, tangible. Wow? Tangible and concrete action. Oh, di ba? Ano siya yung mga term diha? Tangible. Wow. Okay. Ganon. Tangible, guys, meaning doable and transparent. Mga ganon siya na mga results-oriented. Okay? Parang ganon siya. Okay? Dila yung puro mga ano lang sa bibig, kiyaw-kiyaw lang, and not put into actions, not converted into actions. Okay? Because statements converted into actions are the best. Okay? Statements or words converted or transformed into actions are the best, rather than statements only without acting on it. So it will serve as useless. Okay? Like this. Okay? Muna siya mga quote of the day. Wow! I established quote of the day on the spot right now. Okay. Statements converted to actions are the best thing in life. Well, so, nausab siya. Dito na kinausab, i-modify na ako. At least correct lang natin. Dito ako naman sa akong brain cells. Guys, alam kong terminology yung inject into my... You know, muna akong problema. Daghan kayo mga terms sa akong brain cells. Really. Nakakaloka, di ba? Moto akong ambition when I was a child. When I grow up, I need to make my own book authored by myself. Ganon. And it has not been accomplished until now. Like that. Ako dyan ang author. Yeah, isold sa market globally. Ganon. But it was not realized. Okay. Grabe kayo mga ambisyon mo. Inana, guys. Dili ng mga kuan makasakyanan ka, may mga greenhouse, can go to different places. Di ba usually mga typical mga ganun ang mga when I was a lain kayo guys, ako dili nga na makadiscover kong something na ako rajud under my name. Na niabot dito ang point na I want to discover an element derived from my name. For example, Sotero element sa periodic table. Nanunugati kayo. Tapos, pero kana siya, mura siya kanang dua sa akong mind ba when I was a child. And then, pero ang first din ako na ambition is really to create a book authored by myself. Ganon. Misal, nabagay ko sa kumpanya, created by, Dr. Sotero, Doctor in, Doctor in Chemistry. Ganon! Grabe kaya itong mga dream anak, guys. Dili siya sa mga kuan, mga induto ng balay, na nakagwarta. Dili nga na akong kuan, ambition na sa child. Di ba? Lahi. Di ba? Dili siya typical. Nakakaloka. I cannot explain. Nakakaloka. Ano sa may tawagan na, guys? Uy. Grabe kaayo. Wow. Muna siya, guys. Tapos okay. Ako lang ikuan kay because itong topic no, nya magsugod na ta. Kaya ako man part 2. Wow. Okay, now. So, the first thing to discuss, guys, nabalik ka sa mga definition. Okay. Definition of a hazard. Okay. Definition of a risk. Like that. Okay. We don't go to the incidents and accidents because that is not related here, huh? We are really dealing here with proactive approach. Proactive approach, monitoring, meaning to say, we are really preventing the potential accidents and incidents that will be happening in a certain organization to avoid any forms of losses something like that, that involves costs. Okay? So we are not talking for that reactive monitoring kasi yung incidents and accidents, reactive. It happens, then you create a root cause analysis through your corrective actions and preventive measures or any safety recommendations. It's not yet that. That's reactive already. So we are on a proactive approach. Okay? Safe system. Ganon. And this is really discussing hazard and risk. Oh my gosh. Gipulan ko, but I still have to do this. Kay chemical safety man, I love. Alright? Ganon. Okay. Ako isod din. Makita ninyo guys. Kung ganahan ko mag-safety, pwede na kayo guys sa Pilipinas dito di ang safety. Okay, then, actually I applied already for I applied already for, anong tawag doon sa kanang kuan? For professional, safety professional sa DOLA, Department of Labor and Employment. Kasi tawag na yan guys, na kuan ka, apply ka dito para registered safety professional. I am applying for that. Okay? And then they required me to take another advanced training sa government relates to safety training. Okay? There are safety trainings that I have that doesn't contribute scores. There's a certain scores man siya guys na i-add nila na para ma-qualify ka to become like that. Okay? Safety professional. Okay? Or, the term is not that, OSH practitioner. Not really safety professional. Kalimut mo ko sa term. Lagi, muna siya. So, ang kulang na ko, isa na lang ka-advanced safety training related to OSH para mapasar na ko sa OSH practitioner to work as an OSH professional in the Philippines. Okay, ganun siya. Like this. Okay. Then, before I go here also, nag-qualify na ako sa panel interview sa Universal Robina Corporation, URC. Okay? And then, sadly, I was not chosen. Okay, we are only 2 left in the final interview, and the girl was chosen, not me. Because I could not, maybe there's a salary issue there. I don't know, because I delivered everything there. When I delivered everything there, I give all my best in answering their questions very well. But I did not know why the other one was chosen. Maybe he's better than me, she is better than me. Or either there's certain conditions there that it's hard for them to hire me. Something like that. And I think probably it's the salary issue. Okay? Something like that. Because nag-pattern na ako sa kanang abroad na good siya. Dapat talaga i-lower ang demand sa mga salary para matanggap din ka sa Philippines. Kaya sa Philippines, the salary range are not really that high. So you could not also expect to ask a salary that is above of what they can give. Right? Something like that. No, dito nga issue na ako na yan. Char! I was not clever regarding math. See? Mulugwa agad, no? So, I'm not really that smart enough to think about mathematics. Okay? I applied the abroad system to the local system, in which when you talk about salary, hindi na siya mag-match during the demand of the salary. I think that was too high for them. Okay. I think that we are adapt, and then ako yung i-share. This is the first time I share, right? Okay, that was 2018 when I worked there in Qatar for the last job. 2015 to 2018. I am 3.5 years in the state of Qatar, and I'm going back home, and I decided not to work anymore in abroad. Because that's my target. When I pass that URC, being a safety engineer, I will never go back to abroad. That's the first target. Now, we are only 2 left after the screening and the panel interview. It's only in the production management, manufacturing, ganon, in front, because that's panel. right? Okay, we are two left out of blah blah blah. And then the other one is a girl. Okay, and then during the final moment, the girl was accepted, not me. That's why I come back again and going abroad. Like that. Okay? Okay. Gusto mo ka ng stable nga company if I will be in the Philippines. And then URC also is, I think, that stable company. Sa mga chippy, di ba? Ganon, chippy ba na siya? Mga taquitos, Jack in Gel, di ba? Sadly, I was not accepted really. Okay. Walk ka ba kasi mga hinundan? Ganon. Okay, guys. Ano, ganon talaga ang life. Okay? There's many reasons. Sometimes they don't really consider every time the way how you answer the question. Sometimes the balance, the practicality issues or conditions also according to their set of standards, something like that. Okay? Like kaya pag ingon ako atong figure na usap magod ilang kuan, ilang face, something that they could not give. Though I keep on answering very well, but on the salary type question, it looks like that their face is changing, the mood. Of course, you can observe, right? Because you are facing them. Okay? And I'm pretty sure that is really the reason behind I was not accepted. Because of the demand salary issue. Diba? Okay guys, isa na yung urasa ay kimukaon ako buwan. Buwan. Uy, na ako'y buwan. Gimingaw ko buwan. Charot! Okay guys, ako sa natiwasan na. Okay, kadali lang. So hazard is anything that has the potential to cause harm. Anything that has the potential to cause harm and potential illness and sicknesses. Okay? Ganon. So, kahit wala na siya mga potential illnesses and sicknesses, pwede na siya. Okay? Kahit anak naman ta, hazard naman ta. So, it's anything that has the potential to cause harm. Okay? Oh, okay. Very general kaya siya, there's no harm siya. We don't know what harm is that. And then, potential meaning, another term of potential in English, we have the chance, the possibility, the probability, the tendency. So these are the, again, potential, chance, tendency, possibility, and probability. There are 5 terms to be used interchangeably in this definition. It depends on the reference materials na of the training materials or any reference sources you have. Sometimes they change this. Is anything that has the probability to cause harm? Is anything that's the chance to cause harm? Is anything that's the tendency to cause harm? Is anything that has the possibility to cause harm? Meaning, there's a lot of words in replacement of potential. Okay? Muna siya yung mga technique sa mga definition. Di mo focus sa usa ka term. Okay? Because there's a lot of meaning for that. And they will use that every time and use the not common one and then still put in the same sentence like this. Okay? And then sometimes also this harm, you change this also to danger, like that. Because harm also have so many definitions. Okay, in danger, in catastrophe, mga gano'n. Okay, you know what I mean? It's more than a shot. Char! Okay? Ako yung i-expound. Kung na nakaduwi na ako i-expound. Okay. Now, kung rest siya, guys, atong i-show ang math sa rest before the definition, ha? Makita ninyo akong board. Okay. So, rest is equal to the hazards plus the exposure. Right? No. If there's no exposure and there's a hazard, there will be no risk. Get the point? That still remain a hazard forever. Okay? But if there's an exposure to that hazard, that will become a risk. So, in short, technically, there will be no incident and accident if there's no exposure. Okay? Something like that. Okay? For example, there's a fire accident. So, I think this chemicals was exposed to this certain heat ignition source. Kung wala exposure, lilibid siyang fire. Something like that. Okay? So, hazards plus exposure. Okay? So, if you convert that into a sentence, like this already. Okay? Kanino ni siya ipilit sa inyong brain cells because you'll be doing this for the rest of your life if you are in the OSH career path. Okay? Ganon. So, ano ni siya? Mugamit ako dali of the probability. Okay? Mo may sikat. Okay? The probability of the hazards. The probability of the hazards to cause harm. Okay? Okay. And its severity. And its severity of injury. And its severity of injury. And then damage to the plant equipment or work equipment. Okay, environment, ganun siya. Okay, like this. Materials or it's chuba-chuba-chu. Okay, interruption to normal operation. Okay, like that. And, loss of life. Okay, ganon. Loss of life and a combination of all. Ganon. Meaning, combination of all, lahat ng mga losses. Okay, na chuba-chuchu. Anything. Okay, there's a lot of types of losses, right? Okay. So, the probability, maklaro nyo guys ang board. O, diba? Nakakaluka. Uy, Teacher June, hindi maklaro. Charot. Uy, mga palangga, klaro na. Okay. The probability of the hazards to cause harm and its severity of injury, damage to the plant equipment or property, environment, or damage to the workplace, etc., etc., interruption to normal operation, loss of life, etc., and the combination of all. So that's the detailed definition of a risk. Okay? Klaro ha? Okay. Kaya may examination niya kakaroon. Charot! Charot lang. Okay. Dito mo pa na madugay tag samot. Ari na lang ta sa kuan. Di ba chemicals man to? Mag-isgot na lang tag chemicals, guys. No. Okay. So, chemicals are always part of our life. We can drink them, eat them, we can find them in the school, in our workplace, in the plant, in the factories, in the universities, in public places, or in malls, or in different whereabouts, and where we're able to pursue or whatever we're going to do in our daily lives, like that. Chemicals are always part of us, and it can be produced naturally, and man-made or artificially, like that. So, okay, muna siya ang chemicals. I'm not talking yet for the hazards, for this. Introduction naman siya. Charot! Charot lang. Okay, now, guys, ari na tamo focus sa kuan. Because what comes in your mind are the hazard. Discuss naman kuan na, di ba? So, kani siya guys, murag makalibog, pero kung imong tukion, makasabot ra ka. Okay? So, mo ni siya. So, ano ako? Di ba sometimes yung chemical hazards. So, because we're dealing in chemicals, and then we say, chemical hazards. So dili na ka maka-project alay ng panghazard, chemical hazards naman siya ang giingon. So we need to revise the wording. We will say hazards of chemicals. You get the point? Hazards of chemicals. Because if we say chemical hazards only, specifically, we cannot talk about biological hazards, physical hazards, safety hazards, ergonomic hazards, like that, or whatever, like that, right? Because na-specify na talaga dito chemical hazards. Because chemical hazards is one type of hazards. Okay? Along with the biological, electrical, ganon. So, in order for me to present another types of hazards is to reward hazards of chemicals. Because there's a lot of hazards of the chemicals. That's why I changed the chemical hazards just to present. Actually, already pasagot pero lahi mo lang yung mga chemical hazards. Specific na chemical hazards na siya. You get the point? You get the point? Because if I will say chemical hazard, I cannot enumerate anymore the other thing. Because that's already specific chemical hazard. So, there's no chance for biological to come in. There's no chance for the physical hazards to come in because you are referring specifically that is really already chemical hazard. But if I will speak hazards of chemical, meaning there's a lot of hazards of that chemicals, I have still to mention what are that. But there's a difference in the presentation of your words. Okay, when you discuss something like that. Okay? So hazards of chemicals rather than chemical hazard. Murag perfection ang dating. Charot! Charot lang. Tukion jud. Charot lang ha. Sige na nasa ko yung hambugi roon. Okay. Now, unsa may hazards ano niya sa chemical? Nakakaloka. Sakit akong sa tawag niya guys? Spinal column. Wow! Vertebrate. Nakakaloka. Vertebrate. Okay, number 1, we have health hazards. Okay. Health hazards. Okay. Number 2, we have biological hazards. Okay. Biological hazards. Okay, number 3, unsa pa man? Physical hazards. Okay. And then, number 4 is the chemical hazards. O, see, na-enumerate na ko dili ang chemical hazards. Hiningon mo ko hazards of chemicals. Rather than, I will say, chemical hazards, inika-present ako, pareho. Chemical hazards na niya. Redundant siya, inika-present ako sa mga types of hazards during my balloting, something like that, right? This is my purpose. So, chemical hazards. Okay, let's really clear out what it means. And then, muditso ko sa fire and explosion. Okay. Other books, guys, it's stated there, fire and explosion is already an impact consequence, something like that, or a result. But I think it is not yet, because if there's a fire, the impact will be the burned equipment, okay, the board, concrete structures. That will be the impact, right? So even if this fire and explosion, it's really a hazard. But some books I read, they consider this a risk already. Sometimes there's a gray area in some. That's why you need to research more. Okay, because sometimes they put that there and in fact not. Ganun. So nalani mo ang double check, mo verify. So to other sources, what is really correct for test? Ganun. Okay, i-verify mo mga sources. Sometimes Google search sa'yo I remember before, I think magnesium oxide. Okay, and then the chemical formula is wrong. I search in the Google search. And then, no, my gosh, lagi niya ako. So, masayop ang Google search. Usahay, masayop siya, guys. Be careful also. Okay? And then, sa spelling, masayop po siya. Hindi ko na perfect po siya, no? Katong, ang fat, nahibong fat. Ganon. Diba?
So we should not rely only for one sources. Though, okay na siya. Labi na ang Wikipedia, pero mag-research ko dito lain other sources. Okay? So, ganon. So, hazard din ang fire explosion. Pwede din siya impact. So, pwede na din siyang ilimat. Okay? The other hazards will be combining with the hazards of chemical, but that is due only to when reacting or when combining na. So we are not referring to that. Meaning these hazards are really inherent. Even though it will not combine, this is only the hazards we get. These are the hazards we get. Even though not yet moving, or even though hindi pa siya ma-expose, ganon. These are the inherent hazards, built-in hazards. Ganon. Okay, pwede mo connect kung mga hazards na natin sa chemicals, ganon. Okay, electrical hazards, di ba? Pwede siya. Because even you react to blah blah blah, ganon, flammable, chemical, it will cause fire. Not that issue. Meaning kasi, this is only natural hazards found sa chemicals. Okay. Nung i-appeal ako biological, I will explain. Okay, because I'm not limiting to the process in the plant, the factories. I'm also considering the chemicals inside our body. So I put biologicals. And also the hazards found in the market, bakala. There's a biological hazards coming from the food substances, especially kung ma-expired yung product, the yeasts will occur, the molds will occur, the fungi will occur. So that's part of biological hazards. Chemicals man siya originally. Okay, and that is a natural process. Okay, nobody touches that one, but it will produce directly the molds after how many months, na-expire siya, di ba? Huwag man nilamti. Okay? So that's a hazard for chemicals also. But this is not really mentioned all the time in the books. Ako naging siya, ako na naging connect. Some also have, but majority din nila na-express na ang biological hazard na siya sa chemicals. Okay? Usually lang yun. Diba? Ang ihatag ka na dito health hazard, o kaning fire explosion. O kaning chemical hazards. Okay? Ganun guys. Now, 1 to 5, kung saan yung kalibugan yung higayon na. Higayon na talaga. Ganon. Higayon na. Charot. Kung health hazard siya, or closer siya sa chemical hazards, no. Lakad. Okay. Health hazards. O, ganon. Chemical hazards. Okay. Now, some books or some references books, especially bush material, the chemical hazards are different with the health hazards. Some also are just the same. And then, how can we categorize that it's different? Okay? Normally, if there's chemical hazard, it will directly affect the health. Right? Something like pangganon. Okay? Now, kung saan mali mo pag-justify ang health hazard kumpara sa chemical hazards. Okay? So, ang chemical hazards now, okay, these are the type of hazards. These are types naman siya, no? These are kinds of hazards. Okay? Hazards as per, okay, ganon, as per phases of matter of a substance. Okay? Ganon. Okay, chemical hazards, these are kinds of hazards as per phases of matter of a substance. Masa naman ito siya? Solid, liquid, gas. How they behave. Muna siya yung chemical hazard. Ang health hazards, these are kind of hazards. These are kind of hazards. Okay. As per physical and chemical properties and characteristics of the chemicals. How it behave and how it combine. Di ba na yung difference?
Okay, these are, but other books, you know, because what was na nalagay, okay, chemical engineer man ko, mong akong dito, okay, so, these are, okay, uy, wala pa rin itudlo ha, ako ang initiative, based on my brain cells, charot, okay, kaya nindot man good ka nga, dili ka bookish, okay, these are, ganun. Di ba mawa siya akong sipon if I will do the vlog. O di ba? Basta ito siya guys. These are, ganun, chuba-chucho. Kailangan naman akong ibuhat, di ba? Bakit naman yung mga takog? Di ba ang saya-saya? Kakaloka. Okay. These are kinds of hazards. Okay. Of hazards. Babasa ninyo, no? Okay. This kind of hazards as per physical and chemical properties. Chemical properties. Okay. Characteristics. Okay. Characteristics. Behavior, how it will combine to other substances, how it will combine to other substances, okay, referring to the host. Host meaning person. Okay, person, because health is usually on to the person, the point of direction. You are referring these hazards to the health, and we are referring to the health of the human being. That's what it says. These are kinds of hazards as per physical and chemical properties and characteristics and behavior of the chemicals, how it will behave. Okay, like that, referring to the host, like that. Okay. Sa chemical hazards, lahi siya. Di man mo pwedeng ibutang physical chemical na good siya. So, chemical hazard, these are kinds of hazard as per phase of matter of a substance. Okay, wala siya definition. Now, imo siyang i-quantify. You should quantify or elaborate. Kung saan na siyang mga health hazards. Umunin niya siya ron. Mag-ibog na ka na, chemical hazard, mag-mix up na niyo, pero you should also think, imo siyang tukion. Ganon. Now, kung di mo siya as per phases of matter, solid, liquid, gas, mo na siya ang katong na itong mga kuan, chemical hazards, dust. So, solid. Okay, dust, smoke, so vapor. Okay, before, fumes. Okay, mists, suspended liquid particulates or droplets suspended in air, that is mists. Okay, and aerosols, katong mga sa sprays. Okay, gaseous released by sprays, insecticides, ganun siya. Get the point? Insecticides, sprays, any kinds of sprays na i-inject sa fruits, sa plants, or whatever nga mo sa atmosphere. Kung nagasya sa aerosols. Okay? Etc. etc. That is basing on the physics of the matter, solid, liquid, and gas. Now, mo na siya ang chemical hazards. Get the point? This one. In Bush, these are presented in this way, which is correct. But sometimes this one, they will put this in the health hazards, which are wrong. Okay? Because health hazards is not basing on this. Basing on the physical and chemical properties and characteristics of chemicals, how they behave, interact, or chemically combine with other substances, referring to the host or to the human being. So it's gonna be here, ano na siya, katong mga tuba-chucho, katong mga carcinogen. Okay? Get the point? Pathogen. Okay? Like that. May katong mga irritant. Okay? Corrosive. You get the point? Okay. Sensitizer. Okay? Then we have katong mga flammability. Okay? Then reactivity. Okay? Explosivity, the ability of the chemicals to conduct detonation or explosion. So explosivity or explosive rating, like that. Okay, explosivity, ganon. And then we have also the toxicity. Okay, radioactive. Okay, ganon. Okay, like that combustibility. How it combusts, or the ability of the chemicals to be burned when it emits vapor to the atmosphere. That is combustibility or combustible. Ano yung meaning sa combustible, ha? The ability of a substance that can be burned when it emits vapor to the atmosphere in the presence of an ignition source. Okay. So that is combustible. Ganon. Okay. Ganon siya, guys. Okay? Muna na siya ang example sa health hazards. Okay? Ang target ang health sa human being. Okay? So, chemical hazards, dust, smokes, vapor, fumes, mists, aerosols, gases. Dust, G-E-S. Like that. Health hazards, carcinogen, pathogen, okay, irritant, corrosivity, sensitizer, flammability, reactivity, explosivity, toxicity, radioactive, and combustible. Any questions so far? Now, if you see in the MSDS, or shall we say in the chemical labeling, if it's specific there in the hazards warning, this is hazards warning or hazard symbol, usually it's expressed in here in the health hazard, not this chemical hazard. Okay, because that is referring to the health of the human being who are handling and using the chemicals. Muna mo refer na siya ani. Dili ni siyang mga dust, smoke, vapor, fumes. Okay, these are referring to chemical hazards when it exists as a phase of matter. Okay? Solid, liquid. Because here, klaro ka siya sa mga physical and chemical properties o okay, characteristics o being a pathogen chemicals, being a carcinogenic chemicals o di ba? Mga ganon-ganon. Actually, they're still poisonous, but poisonous is under toxicity. Okay? How poison is that? Under toxicity siya. That's why wala na ako ibutang. Okay? I never put that one. Okay? Something like that. Okay? So, klaro na ha ang health hazards or chemical hazards. Now, biological hazards. The ability of the chemicals to decompose or to produce spore-forming bacteria, fungi, algae, molds, yeast, and any forms of living organisms. Muna siya biological hazards. Because it's impossible it can create snake, reptilia, mammalia, amphibia. Because it's chemicals. How can it will transport to a snake? Because that's also biological hazards. Because others are thinking that kind of hazard, a parasite like that, a worm, okay, the arthropods, what else? You know my point, right? The parasites group, the worm group, the E. coli, the ganon, Escherichia coli. Okay. It's not the biological hazard we mean here in the chemicals. Okay? Okay. Mag-magic ang tahana if that is referring. Kani siya, the ability of the chemicals to produce or decompose to ito kung ingon, spore-forming bacteria, fungi, yes. Actually, ano pala siya, at certain parameters and conditions. Normally, temperature. At certain temperature, mo-convert siya usahay ang mga chemicals into that. For example, butyric acid, ganun, mo-convert siya o ka ng molds, ganun. Usahay, when you put food inside the refrigerator, it will convert to a mold later on after 2 weeks. There's a white color in the outer layer. So that's really a conversion of a chemical to a mold, which is a biological hazard. Okay? We should not limit ourselves. The biological is always like this. Amphibia, reptilia, snake, like this, worm, parasite, ganon. Okay, got my point? Okay? So muna siya, nasa sa biological hazards and chemicals. Okay? And then, ang kaning physical hazards, guys, unsa man ni siya? Okay, physical hazards. Since we are dealing with physical property, ang chemicals duha gyud na iyang nature, physical property and chemical property. Now, there's a lot of physical properties. If you're studying a science course, there's a lot. You have to mention the density, the surface tension, specific gravity, the viscosity, like that. Boiling point, melting point, freezing point, something like that. Okay? So, these are physical hazards, including also the temperature and pressure. Okay, the volume is also a physical hazard. Okay, the volume quantity of the chemical. So these are all physical, not chemical. Okay, wala man, because the substance did not deform or not alter the substance from one phase to another. Okay? And there's no changes in color, there's no still changes in the smell. So it doesn't alter the composition of the chemicals, that's why it's physical. Lahi man ang chemical properties. Okay, so muna naapog kay physical hazards. Masama na siya kapag mga boiling point, okay, boiling point, melting point, freezing point, ganon, okay, the density, okay, the volume, ganon, mga molecular weight, surface tension, viscosity, ganon, chiba-chiba, alam, temperature, pressure, ganon. Okay. Mga operating conditions and parameters sa process, those are physical. Okay? Because if too much boiling point, that's very hot. So that's a physical hazard already. You can explain that. If this too much high temperature, it's very also hot. Okay? So if too much pressure also, your chemicals will, but there's a lot of vibration and it will break the container, especially if the container is glass. So that is physical hazard. Do not limit yourself to health and, chemical if you are dealing with chemical safety. There's a lot of hazards only for that. And we need to comprehensively discuss. Okay, muna siya ang physical hazards sa chemical. And then, the special hazards is really fire and explosion. It's in here that it causes a lot of damage. Because it involves facilities, equipment, technology, like that will be destroyed. And it involves a lot of costs. Okay? To replace the apparatus, to replace the equipment, the structures. For example, if the whole, building was damaged, burned, like that. Okay? So, muna siya pinakakuyaw ang fire and explosion. But usually, if you know if you know the physical hazards and the health hazards, then you can eliminate the fire and explosion. Right? So if you remember this fire and explosion, you have also an indicator or identification. What are the hazards linked to fire and explosion? Munumdog ka sa health hazard o sa chemical hazard. Okay, ang chemical hazard naman siya yung mga fume, vapor, smoke. Mostly smoke, vapor, and fume are highly flammable. It emits into the atmosphere. So it could create fire. Okay. Now, in explosion, most of the chemicals have higher explosivity rating, or mostly are highly reactive. So, it has a chance to explode or detonate. So muna yung tibalaan, that's why there's a fire explosion. Ganon. You get the point? O, diba? So, at least 5 types of hazards of chemicals. Types ha, huwag na yung kinds. Okay? Like that. Now, examination pa kami gayon na, lingon ko, what are the hazards of chemical? You will answer dust, smoke. It's wrong ha. You will answer health hazard, biological hazard, physical hazards, chemical hazards, and fire explosion. If I will say, what are chemical hazards? Answer kami, dust, smoke, B4, fumes, like, promoting ko bang uban mo, answer ko sila ano mga probability, reactivities, di ba? You got the point? And then, mo sila kasabot, nga kaning mga flammability is under physical properties, magula siya, di mo siya chemical properties, so it's not a chemical hazard. You get the point? Okay? Di ba? And combustibility or combustible is the ability to be burned. There's no connection with a chemical. There's a connection of fire and explosion. Okay? Muna sa inyo, tukion tag sa tagsa para makuan dyan ba? Char! Muna di ba detailed? Okay, very detailed. Erase na. So I hope you insert and you accumulate in your brain cells. Nakakaloka. And now let's discuss one by one. Sa health hazard. Na, uy, murot siya kung time ano. Sa rasa, guys. Okay. Napay gamay. Di ba ang saya special? Okay, ganun. Mag-start sa toxicity definition. Anybody? Aside from the word alone can describe or can explain well without memorizing, without referring to the book, or any, you can answer that by your own explanation, the word toxicity, because the root word is toxic. You will say, that is an ability of the chemical to prove how toxic or not. Because this is toxic. So, even though you did not study, you can have your own definition. So that's the power of English. Okay, even though you did not study, but since you understand that this is referring to the toxic, the root word is toxic, you can say, this is the characteristic or the ability or the chemical substance that causing the toxicity or how toxic the substance really is or not. This is this toxicity, diba? But that is not the definition we want to. So that's pretty obvious. We go to another definition that's not connected with the root word. But that's still correct. But, you know, we go to the standard like this. Okay? Well, actually, that's correct. Okay? So, toxicity. Ganon. Okay. Toxicity. This is really the ability or the characteristic of a chemical to cause poison to human being. Poison, how poisonous the substance really are. That's why I did not put poisonous in the health hazard because it's under toxicity. Okay? The ability, ganon, di ba? The ability, paano naman ang ability characteristic? Good. Naranan mo siya yung buhaton. Okay, the ability to cause, okay, poison, okay, to human being or a host. When you mean of host, guys, that's human being, ha? H-O-S-T. Human being. But host is most applicable in the medical term. Medical science, we usually refer human being as host. H-O-S-T. Okay? So the ability to cause poison to human being. Ano na lang. Okay? If it is poisonous or not, that is under toxicity. Okay? Now, if imagine Tokyo, napag na siya a general term for that. That is hazardous. Under pag na siya sa hazardous, ganun. Hazardous. And the other one is harmful. Okay? Harmful. But these are all ano lang siya, synonymous terms referring to toxicity. Okay?
But it's still correct to use this. But the standard is really toxicity. Okay? But the meaning is just the same. How hazardous the substance really are, how harmful the substance really are, it's still referring to toxicity. Okay? Ganon. Later, I can explain this. If we will use the NFPA 704 standard system of identification of the hazards of different materials or chemicals for emergency response. That is the standard for the chemical safety regarding the labeling of any chemicals. Okay. All chemicals pala siya, especially hazardous chemicals. Okay. Kaya dili pa stricto ang dili hazardous good kung mga dili hazardous chemicals, dili stricto. Okay, kaya dili na siya yung tantangan pag mga kuan, diamond for dili mo. Okay, labi na ang water, butakan pa siya mo, dili mo na pwede. Hindi mo na siya hazardous. Okay? Ganon. Now, toxicity no. After that, ano rin kung kuan, diba? Carcinogen. Ano lang gyapon siya? Klaro na sa kasi ang term na is the ability of the chemical substance to cause cancer to human being. So that is carcinogen. The word there is very clear, cancer. Okay? Yung nakakay substance. Yung carcinogen, substance, yun na siya premiha. Okay, ganon. Now, number 3, carcinogen. Kabawa na mo ani dito ba na mo sa technique. Okay, carcinogen. Mora gyapon yung buhaton sa sentence, ano na ka? The ability of a chemical substance to cause cancer to human being. Oh, muna siya carcinogen. Kumingon kag pathogen. Okay, okay. Some chemicals are really pathogens. Okay, the definition for this same pattern, you will say the ability of the chemical to cause diseases to human being. Because these pathogens are disease-causing substances. Okay? Due to bacteria, viruses, fungus or fungi, or any types of living organisms that will destroy our vital organs. Okay, ganon. Ano siyang pathogens? Sa pato, kung ingon, irritant. Mga health hazard di siya ha. Irritant. Ganon. Ang irritant naman is the ability. Sige lang kag-balik ability. Actually, you have to change that word sa gusto rin mo. Kailangan may mga same meaning ng ability. Good? Okay? You got the point? Okay. Now, the ability of a chemical substance, okay, to cause visible, destruction. Okay? Destruction and deformation of your skin surfaces. Muna siya irritant. Okay? Ganun. Sa skin siya ang atake. Basta irritant niya. Sometimes, very itchy, like this. Okay? And sometimes not. Okay? Sometimes, kanang hapdos. Kasi English hapdos. Kalimot ko. Charot! Okay, muna siya irritant, guys, ha? So, ang kanina hindi nga deformation, dili siya yung total na deformation, nga ma-change na ang kuan, structure sa epidermis. This is not literal, okay? Deformation ang ibig sabihin na mga changes sa imong skin. That's what it means lang talaga siya. Not really that, stricto kayo na deformation, sama dyan na deformed yun. Okay? Ang meaning na ba sa deform, mo change na ba ang shape? Muna yung deformation sa English. It's not really word for word, but as long as there are changes in your skin, surfaces, appearances, ganun, deformation ang tawag ni Ana. Okay, di ba? Dili siya word for word, ha? The ability of the substance that causes to have a visible, destruction and deformation of your skin surfaces. Di ba? Destruction dyan ang tawag. Kasi kung hindi sabihin ng destruction, lahi na kayo. Lahi naman ang destruction sa atong terms always. Okay, bro, kung ano kayo ba? Mo destroy yun, di ba? Pero in this context, dili siya nga ng interpretation. In your skin surface ng atong reference, ha? Okay. Ganon, ano siya irritant. Okay. Sensitizer. The ability of the chemical to produce or to cause inflammation. Okay? Inflammation. The ability of the chemical substance to cause inflammation and to produce inflammatory cells. Ano sabi mga inflammatory or inflammation? So inflammation guys, muna siya katong mamuwa, reddish, ganun, swollen, ganun, and then there's a pain, wound, like that, injury, like that. Injury in the skin, ha, not, sa skin lang siya, okay? And then muna siya may tabo. So, muna siya nitawagan ng kuan, okay, sensitizer. Okay, swollen, SWOLLE. Most really hapdos, no? Swollen. Ang labi, nakalimot mo ko. Kaya, kanang, kuan, mamaga sa Tagalog. Okay, like that. Okay, mga siya diba sa sensitizer. Kaya tungod man siya sa, based on my research, tungod ni siya sa kuan mga inflammatory cells na ma-produce dito sa inyong immune system. Charot. Lagi, nga belong ni siya sa white blood cells. Muna siya na ma-produce dito. Okay, mugawas sa inyong kuan, skin. Muna na yung inflammation. Tungkol sa mga inflammatory cells, specifically the T cells belong to the white blood cells sa immune system. Ganon. Ang tawag na kay kuan, isa mo ito nakalimot ko, cytokine. Ganon. Cytokine. Small protein na siya guys, ang galing mga cytokines. Small proteins na mo-release siya mga inflammatory cells na coming from your immune system. Okay? Muna mabuwa mabaga, inflammation, gano'n, because of that. Okay? Di mo yung function niya sa itong immune system, mga white blood cells, gano'n, di ba? Okay? I don't have to explain that. It's more in medical science and health science, right? Okay? Ako lang i-explain why. Okay, dinagikan, or what's the source for that? Okay. Okay. I-research ko na nyo sa cytokine ba to guys or cytokine? So something like that. It sounds like that. Yung muna akong memorize dito. Ako lang timanaan ba? Muna siya. Okay. So muna siya nahitang mo. Kauban na ito mga interferons, chemokines, grabe na kayo. Yokoken. Charot! Nakakaloka. Mga kuan, mga tumor necrosis factor, katangkos o mga tumor. Diba? Part na siya sa mga kuan, inflammatory cells. External lang siya. External. Ang sensitizer more on the external. But the internal, ang katong tumor, necrosis factor na mga inflammatory cells na maproduce sa cytokines are on the internal part. Okay, internal muna dito sa mga liver na mga tumor, sa mga heart, dito sa to siya mo inflammate sa mga vital organ. Pero sa external gani, muna siya katong kuan katong maga sa gawas sa imong skin. Muna siya mga sensitizer. Okay? Chemicals. Okay? So, nabi na kayo mga injury and pain na mabati ng higayon na. Okay? Normally ka ng kuhan, wound, cut, CUT, and then slightly cuts or whatever, and then a little bit of lacerations, mga bruises. Sa tawag naman guys. Okay, muna siya. Muna kami nung duman. Lacerations, bruises, okay, mga, di ba, mga injury sa skin. Okay? Na makabati na kayo mga pain, gano'n. So, tuon ni-implement na siya. Okay, iba na ang color, reddish, gano'n. Diba? Okay? Gano'n. Hapdos siguro na yung swollen, no? I think so, hapdos, swollen. SWOOLLEN, swollen. Kalimot mo ko sa English. Sige na lang. Okay, muna sensitizer. Okay, nanata. Ang flammable. O, siyempre kayo, may pwede mo rin yung gimmick ng flammable. So flammable is the ability of the substance to catch fire when it emits vapor. Because it will never catch fire if it will not emit vapor. It is the vapor flammability that can cause a fire. It's not a liquid itself. And we must know that. It's always the vapor at a certain temperature, at a certain lowest temperature, or what we call is a flash point, that, that makes these chemicals ignite and produce the flammability hazard. It's not the liquid. Okay? Let's make it clear. Okay? So, this is the ability of the substance to cause or to catch fire when it emits vapor. Okay, why? If there's no vapor, there's no requirement to produce the flammability hazards and there's no chance of fire. Okay? Technical information. Okay? It's not the liquid that can cause fire. It's not the chemical liquid that can cause fire. It's the vapor emitted from that flammable liquid. Okay? So that is flammability. Okay? And then we have also combustibility. Wow. So klaro na kayo. It's the ability of the chemical substance to cause combustion, or the ability to be combust, or the ability to be burned. Okay? When it emits vapor at an ignition source. So that is combustibility. It didn't mention about get burned if there's no ignition source. You get the point? If there's no external ignition source or heat, this type of chemicals will not undergo combustion. But it has the combustibility hazard already. You get the point? Ganon. So, combustivity, flammability, toxicity, ganon, chuba-chucho. Ang sa pa to ang giingon? Reactivity. Okay. Reactivity is really a chemical property already. It's a chemical property of chemicals, how it will combine to another chemicals. Combine to another chemical, or how it will react from the word reactivity, right? React. Or how it will react to another chemical to undergo spontaneous violent chemical reaction that will become hazards. Because normally, it could create explosion. Okay, na akong discuss dito sa special hazard. Sa akin na kasi fire and explosion. It's in here that reactivity arise both of that hazards. Konektado ang explosion sa reactivity. The ability of the chemicals to combine or to react with another chemicals to cause explosion and to determine how stable and unstable the chemicals really are. Okay? The reactivity man. If the chemicals will never react, that's unstable. Because it needs to be stable so it will react for others. So if the chemicals are really, really stable, they don't have to react. Okay? You get the point? Muna siya. So there's a lot of chemicals that are unstable. That's why they need to react. They have a higher reactivity rating. So muna siya ang emphasis of reactivity sa chemicals. Now, we go to explosivity or explosion rating. Okay? Muna ni siya. Okay. Masama ni siya. This is with regards to explosive rating. How explosive by word itself, how explosive is this or not. So it has to do something how it will detonate or not at a certain temperatures. Ganun siya muna siya ang mga explosion. Now, how can we determine this? What test? If you conducting a gas test, it will appear on the data what we call as LEL, explosive limit, lower explosive limit, or we have also the UEL, upper explosive limit, something like that. So meaning it is the lowest concentration. This is at lowest concentration when the chemicals will explode at a ignition source. Okay. the presence of the ignition source. Okay, that's explosion. Okay? Bisag, if these chemicals have a higher explosion rating, but if you never react them to other chemicals, or if you never react that to heat or ignition, it will never explode. That's common sense. But there is an inherent explosion or explosivity rating of that chemical. That's what it means, ha? It will never explode by its own. There's always outside factors that will trigger that to explode. Common sense. Okay, it could be the environment, very hot, like that, or let's say the configuration of your workplace. Then it's very, there's not enough space and it will bump and it will go to the floor, explode. Like that. Okay, because there's an energy and then it will, be broken like that and then it will go out of the container. Of course, it will explode. You get the point? So it depends on the outside factors. Okay, like that. But there's already an explosion hazard for that. Okay? Inherently, built in, something like that. Okay? So that is explosion or explosivity hazards. Okay. So ito mong gingon. Reactivity. O, tapos na ta. Radioactive. O, kanina mga radioactive, klaro kayo sa radiation. Okay, radioactive. You need to explain further, but I have to explain something. This is more on the non-ionizing radiation, ha? Non-ionizing lang siya. Dili ka itong mga infrared. You get the point? Dili ka itong mga infrared radiation. Kani siya, radiation lang yun siya na pure sa chemicals. Okay? Ganon, radioactive siya. Ang target cells niya usually ang vital organ, mga systemic, reproductive organ, ganun, respiratory, cardiovascular, central nervous, mga vital organs sa radioactive. Dahil po sa exposure sa radiation. Okay, unsa man siya nga, muna siya itong mga particles emission, ang mga chemistry na punta. So particles emission sa man to, alpha ray, gamma ray, mga ganon. Diba? Mga emissions, chuba-chucho. Ang chemicals na apoy characteristics na ingon ni Ana nga ma-emit sa outside environment. Okay, like that. Okay, no alpha rays, alpha emission, beta emission, ganon, gamma, x-rays, something like that. Okay, especially kung siyang expose siya sa kanang sun, direct heat of the sun, okay na siya radiation magpulot ang mga chemicals. So, na highly radioactive. Ganon. Paspas na ba kayo ng radioactivity? Okay, so atong bantayan ko na siya. Okay, may balaan man po na siya. Usually it is polonium containing chemicals. Polonium, uranium, iridium, cesium. That is most on the artificially prepared chemicals at the last horizontal row of the periodic table. Na dito mga artificially prepared chemicals katong mga radioactive. Di ba? Radioactive katong mga cesium, uranium, iridium, polonium. After that katong mga artificially prepared na katong mga laurentium, mga gano'n na ba na mga grabe na kayo na mga latest discovery na mga artificially prepared elements. Sulod na sila sa periodic table, ha? Ang kanang artificially prepared o katong mga radioactive substances. Kung namoy periodic table ito, i-add na sa itong pinakatumi-tumoy sa horizontal row. Okay? Muna siya ang mga radioactive. Okay? Ubang chemicals, ano din yung ability. Okay? That's why i-appeal din siya sa hazard sa chemicals, of course. Okay? You get the point? Mabuti i-test na sa x-ray, ginagawin siya chance of radioactivity. X-ray machine. Okay? Okay, if not, there's no purpose at all. Diba? Kung siya, radioactivity. Ang sa pa man, radioactivity, explosivity, reactivity, gano'n, chuba-chucho, ang sa pa. And now, appeal po niya siya sa health hazards. Ang specific, guys, nakalimot ko mention, no? Specific hazards or special hazards na marami siya ang gitawag nato nga katong katong mga acidity or acid, alkalinity, then it is alk. You can found that on the chemical labeling, alk lang siya, ALK. Kung acid na siya ACD or acid, depende sa iyang labeling. But usually, kung oxidizer siya guys, ang gibutang dito kay OXY, not OX, OXY. Muna siya. Kung na-IW siya guys, then there's a horizontal sa tunga, meaning to say, reactive or explosive to water. Dili mo, you will never mix that to water because it will explode if you will mix that to water. Ang symbol sa chemical, W na na horizontal. Get the point? So, be careful. Kung naagad-ingani nga symbol, ang gitawag ni Alice sa safety is, this is what we call pictogram. Pictogram, symbolic expressing of the hazards of the chemicals. Okay? This is pictogram. May W with a horizontal line center. That means it is not compatible with water. It will never be reacted to water. It will never be combined to water. If it will be combined to water or react to water or introduced to water or contact to water, it will explode. Okay? Ganon. Muna siya mga specific hazards sa chemicals. Okay. Get the point. Yan, kung corrosive siya guys, ang corrosive. Okay, so many mga corrosive. Usually, ang corrosive guys, it is, nakalimut ko discuss sa corrosive. So, a corrosive is the ability of the chemical substance, okay, to produce skin contact in your skin surfaces. So, usually by splashes, like ganon, okay. So, mag-produce ano usually ka ng mga dermatitis, okay, skin irritation, and then sometimes also, irritation of, the skin. Usually, doon siya mga corrosive. Okay? I-mention sa na dito, appeal siya sa specific hazard ha. Ato ibuwag. Okay? So, COR. Ganon. Core. CORRR. Ganon. Wala siya. Reflect na dito siya sa katong diamond akong giinon. Diamond. Okay? Muna ang white color. Ang flammability, ang red color. Ang yellow, ang reactivity. Ang blue, ang toxicity. Okay. Now, guys, the best thing to do first is to know and read the label. Okay. And now, go first to the warning signs and the hazard signs. Kasi kada lang siya daog na pasok sa banga. Okay, warning signs and hazards. Because ang warning sign, it will really express if it is dangerous, red, caution, you will take a caution if yellow. And then if you will take that is a prohibitory, really, that is blue. Just like a traffic color, traffic safety color. Mo sa nga ang mga warning sign. So kung pula na ganun siya ibutang dito, nasa siya yung word na kakapin, ganon, dangerous, muna ang mga warning sign. Okay? Yeah. Kung yellow, na to caution, do not blah blah blah, do not blah blah blah, handle with care, ganon. Prohibitory, katong blue, di ba? Ano siya na, this is not strictly applicable to something. Di siya pwede jud, strictly. So that is prohibitory. Muna mga color-color mo emphasize po siya, anak. But usually, ay kaguol, don't be afraid or don't be sad because there's also a little word will be put in the color. Okay? That is warning signs. If you are dealing with chemicals. And third, the hazard signs. Okay? Muna din siya ang katong mga skull. Okay? Skull, meaning poisonous. Skull, di ba? And then naay mga katong corrosive, katong member na yabo nga to, giyabo nga solvent, mo to siya corrosive. Kasi nga ba, yung radioactivity, mura siya ka ng, the radioactivity is just like a fan. Ang sign niya, F-E-N, blade fan. Ano siya, muna siya radioactivity. Ganon. O diba? Nadagan kayo na siya guys. Pilang nakabuok mga hazard signs. Muna mong timan-an ha sa chemicals nila siya. Okay? Ay, tagpul, kailangan sa siya yung word. Okay, ang word mo na siya yung hazard statement. Oh, di ba? Hazard statement, the hazard is expressed in words. Because hazard signs, the hazards are expressed through symbols or pictograms. Yung kag-warning signs, muna to ka mga caution, dangerous, with colors. Dapat ka mo technically differentiate. You get the point? Though hazardous la tanan. Okay, hazard statement, meaning words, referring to the hazard. If it is toxic, isuwak na siya sa chemical. Now, hazard signs, muna siya ang katong mga symbol, mga pictogram na nag-represent sa katong statement na hazard. Na toxicity, na ikuan ron, poisonous, na katong murag skull, ana-ana, chuba-chucho, radioactive, katong na yung mga fan, ana. Nakamuri bahala na dito. Charot! Okay? Wala siya pasabot. And then, ang atong kuan guys, ang atong warning signs, nag-refer na siya if it is dangerous, ganon, if it is caution, it's caution. Okay? And then if it is really prohibitory, ganon. Nasa color chuba-chucho. Ang red mo ay kuyaw. Ay, hindi nili-interpret ang red always na flammable na naging siya pirmi. Kaya ilan na po na mo kay naman dito, warning signs. Yung flammability, isuot mo gina dito sa diamond. Di ba? Na red siya. May ilan rin mo, daog pasok sa banga. And then, lingunin ka nga, muna siya no, hazard statement, hazard signs, warning signs. Dapat yung kay kuan, hazards category. Okay? Ang hazards category, mag-number na kanian higayon na. Okay, hazards category. O, 0, 1, 2, 3. Ako issue, ako yung green wiki para masabtan. Okay? Laon ito na as Jason, host akong oras. Grabe sige kung ka-explain. Char! Last! Nakakaloka. O pagkalitan napot sa mga kuan guys, mga safety precautions, ang ganun, di ba? So, taas man dyan ang chemicals. Sige lang. Okay? So, ato sa papason. Okay? Okay, like that. Oh, di ba ha? Di ba na yung mga diamond, chuba-chucho? Yeah. Ano na? Tadadat. Ganon. Red, fire hazard, flammability. Yellow, reactivity. Okay? Ganon. Blue is toxicity. Oh, ganon. Diba? Or health hazard na siya. But sad to say, health hazard is general magod siya. Munang refer din na siya sa toxicity ang blue. Ako na may i-explain ang health hazard. Akan kaya siya composition. Pero ang ubang books, references, nagbutang niya pa na siya health hazard sa blue. But actually, that's not specific, that's general. But the specific really is toxicity. Okay? For blue, not health hazard. Because health hazard, akong iingon, laghan kayo mga carcinogen, pathogen, gano'n, chuba-chucho. Okay? So, di ba siya nag-represent ba? Okay? So, ang gi-represent ang blue, ang toxicity na yun. Dili ang carcinogen, ang pathogen, isa pa itong mga health hazard, akong ipang-mention ganina, di ba naghan kayo? Okay? Mula siya. Ang white mo siya mga specific hazard. Usually ganang precautions ano niya, PPE regular in town. PPE. Wearing of appropriate PPE. Okay? Ganon. And sometimes also administrative control. Okay? Administrative control ka na mga safe handling of chemicals instructions. Ganon. Safe usage instruction mo na siya mga under sa mga administrative control. Okay? Murang i-change lang mo, you change the way to be exposed on the hazards. How you react to the hazards, ganun. Change the worker's way to be exposed against the hazards. Muna siya ang administrative control. Broader kayo, change the worker's way or the person's way in exposing against kay ano kuan man away sa hazard, di naman siya adto ka sa hazard, so against or away from the hazards, the term matters a lot, right? Or from. So again, change the way, the worker's way, okay, the worker's way to expose from or against the hazards. Mga pamaagi ba na para ka malayo sa hazard sa chemical, minsayon lang nato. Muna siya pasabot sa administrative control. Okay? Dili na siya PPE. Ang PPE kay sayon naman ibo naman sa ubod. Okay, daog pasok sa banga. Okay? Ang kani kay lisod man ning way kay mabuhat man jud kag mga pamaraan o system. Instruction number 1, instruction number 2. Ganun. Okay, sila ang administrative control no, nandiyo mga action verb. Okay? Imong gamiton sa imong system, procedure, ganun, whatever, protocol, ganun. Muna ang gibuhat sa government, ang protocol nila muna ang administrative control sa COVID. Example na siya sa administrative control. Okay? Then part of it also is health and hygiene. Okay? Sa administrative control. Actually, buwag na ang personal health hygiene sa administrative control. Pero isabol na siya usually due, especially sa mga government health protocols, isabol na nila pirmi. Okay? Yan ka ng mga diagnostic approach to detect the hazard. Muna na siya ka ng mga engineering control, ka ng mga vaccination, mga swab test, muna siya ang mga engineering control. Okay, kailangan may mga devices used, apparatus used, para nila ma-diagnose ang if there is positive or negative. So, ni-obligate po na sila sa safety nga pamamaraan. Okay? Sa safety, magula ka lang guys, ka ng mga elimination, substitution, engineering controls, administrative controls, and the PPE. So, ang ginabuhat sa government, naana siya sa administrative control or sa katong health and hygiene, and then some of it also engineering control. Okay? Because it's impossible we can eliminate. Ang the best method guys is elimination to physically remove the hazard. But we cannot do it sometimes because we will do our work. Okay? And it's already noted na naagid na siya. So we cannot eliminate. So ito ka sa unang mga technique na siya, na pinakalas na niya ang PPE. Kanang mga mask, muna siya pinakalas. Okay? Muna siya less effective sa tanang mga health protocol. Kanang mga PPE. Okay na nagtuon mo na ka na siya number 1. It's not. It's the last. Okay, ako i-arrange ha. Okay. Ang pinakataas nyo lang elimination. Okay? Physically remove the hazard. We cannot remove COVID-19. So, this is not possible. Okay? Number 2, elimination slash substitution. We can replace. Substitution meaning, we need to replace the chemicals with the less hazardous or chemicals that are not hazardous, of course. But it's impossible. Most of the chemicals are really slightly hazardous, but not zero. Okay? That's why substitute kung dapat, hindi naman pwede. Especially if it is just specific to your operation. Hindi naman pwede mailis na lain. Okay? So, hindi ka pwede mo magamit ang substitution, ang elimination substitution. Ari ka number 2, ari ka sa engineering control. Okay? So, engineering control, okay. Muna naman kung ano yung mga kuan. This is to isolate, no? Isolate the exposure of human being to the hazard, against the hazards. Okay, isolate ba ang exposure sa hazards? So, muna na katong mga magbutang ng mga ventilation, mga fume hood sa chemicals para ma-release dito sa gawa sa room para dili siya makuan ba ma-trap, di ba? Inhale o patay, respiratory system na naman. Okay? So muna siya ang engineering control. The better din siya, but it involves higher cost. Muna siya ang issue sa engineering control. Pero mahal-mahal siya. Okay? But kung mugas to dyan, wala problema. Okay? Muna siya. Then kung may utang COVID, ang ginabuhat nila ito mga swab test, ito mga vaccination, muna siya mga engineering control. Like that. Okay? Number 3, ito mga administrative control. Ito mga procedure, mga systems, inong gamiton. Step 1, social distancing. Ganon. Step 2, do not touch these chemicals because it will explode. Number 2, dapat nabi na siya sa laboratory, nakalista. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Muna siya mga administrative control. By looking at it, Okay, the analysts, the chemists, or any workers in civil can understand really, especially if there is an interpretation in Arabic, something like that, okay? So daog na pasok sa banga, kasi dili pumuyaw-yaw ang safety. Okay? Ito po. Because God created us brain to think, even though nobody will get, we know it already. You got the point? We are just instrument. Okay? Like that. Dapat din natin is-config tanan. If there's a warning signs, then kalas, naon, pasok sa banga. Okay? No need to explain more. Right? Okay? Kung naalang din na siya sa mga laboratorio, kaso wala eh. Okay? So, administrative control, wala siya, no? Tapi lang mga science na ini. Science, ano, or instruction, kapag balik na po ng mga discussion sa safety, no? Nakakaloka. Okay, number 4. Ito na ng mga PPE. Okay? PPE ka itong mga. Oh, wear neoprene gloves. Wear polyvinyl gloves. Hand gloves. Wear neoprene latex gloves. Rubber gloves. Ganun. Isa pa. Muna siya. Types of rubber gloves or latex gloves. According sa, sa splash na mag-skin contact. Ganon. And then, di na kayo skin contact mo. Splash na sa inyong mga food, pwede ka mga kuan, rubber boots, if necessary, right? Or kung contact sa body parts, you should also wear rubber shoe or clothing. Okay, balot mo yung self. Ganon. Okay, ano siya. Now, kung sa exposure siya sa mga fumes na mo-attack sa respiratory, then you will wear masks. Okay? So, normally, mga kuhaan in 95, if dili kaya, so go to the respiratory mask. Okay? Air Purifying Respirators or APR. Pwede po ka katong mga SABA, Supplied Air Breathing Apparatus. Okay? Or Supplied Air Breathing Apparatus. Okay? Kaya dili man applicable usually ang scuba. Ang scuba, ang pinangalan niya, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. That's scuba. Okay? And in SCBA, self-contained breathing apparatus. Not necessarily you are under the water or inside the water or inside the sea. Okay? What a difference. So we have scuba and we have also SCBA. We have the SABA, ang paborito nila dilema. SABA meaning Supplied Air Breathing Apparatus. Okay, and we have also APR, Air Purifying Respirator, with cartridge filters. And then, pinakasimple, not really pinakasimple, close to simplicity, ang N95. Okay, N95 mask. And then pinakasimple, ang dust mask. Dust na ordinary. Dapat yun yung pinaka-simple ka ng surgical mask na ka ng nipis. Surgical mask. Okay? Before sa itong ordinary din na mask. Naamasan siya guys. Okay? Itong mga surgical, itong may blue, ikabali pati. Ito na siya surgical mask. Okay? Muna kita huwag nila mga face mask. Okay? Face mask ka lang, sari lang ang color, di ba? Buhat na lang ba? Para pangwarta. Okay, made with clothing, black color, pink color, rainbow color, face mask na siya. Okay, and I don't know, it passes the standard already. Okay, basta what I know, wala na siya sa coverage sa mask, sa respiratory control of the respiratory hazards. Ang ako lang ibaw, ano ito siya. Kung na yung mga ilang color di ara, so magbuhat na nila. Okay, I don't know if pasok sa banga based on the standards. I think it's gonna be 29 CFR, 1910, and it's gonna be 0.134. Naman siya mga numbering guys. Sa head, na siya 1.35. Sa foot, 1.36. Yung ganun. Sa head, 1.133. Sa ear, 1.34. Muna siya ang mga PPE, OSHA standards equivalent. Mag-start siya sa 29 CFR from 131 to 136. Each have numbering for that. For example, 29 CFR 1910.1314 head protection, ganun. Okay, nakalimot ko, bisa sa una ni-memorize na ako, pero na ako yung ma-remembering ko, hindi na siya perfect. Okay, but it's gonna be like that, 0.134 sa kuan, sa respiratory. Teka muna, kaya shoot, 136 ang foot, 135 ang head, 1.34 ang kuan, ang respiratory, 1.33 ang katong hand, gloves. Ganun yung equivalent guys, okay? Na, muna yung mga specific OSHA standards sa PPE. Okay? Equivalent. Okay muna siya guys. Diba? 1910 ang gigamit na ako guys because general industry, not the construction industry nga 1926. Ano mo siya? 29 CFR 1926 point blah blah blah. 29 CFR 1910 point blah blah blah. Ganon. For example, kung chemicals ang i-deal, so 29 CFR 1910.1200, that's referring to chemicals on hazardous communication standards for chemicals. Okay, sikat ang general industry, dili ang construction. Kaya applicable man siya. Kasi ang construction, follow man sa general industry good. Okay, like that. And then, 29 CFR 1910.119 muna to siya ang process safety management nga OSHA standard. Sa process siya. Okay? Muna siya ang ginasunod. Okay? Sa mga general industry. Di ba? 119. Ganon. Now, kung we talk about laboratory, ang laboratory kay basa. Murag ano na siya? 29 CFR 1910.1405. Laboratory hazards for chemicals. Okay, muna siya. Nilay mo itong mga NFFPA po. Nasa ito yung mga equivalent, okay. Na dapat talaga i-memorize, pero hindi mo na ito yung memorize talaga, kailangan kayo. Okay? Ganon siya guys. Ang mga common lang. O, di ba? Mga ganon. So, 0.146 murag confined space. O, di ba? 29 CFR 1910.146 is a confined space. 29 CFR 1910.252 hot work. O, di ba? Mura na ako naman. O, nag-okay ba? Madali lang. Akong na-memorize. Okay? Kaya mo na ito rin, may blang balik-balik. Okay? Oh, di ba? Isa pa, muna na siya. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. Akong tiwasan dito tomorrow. Okay, natulog na ako. Alas 10. Saan na oras? Alas 10. Oh, natulog na ako, guys. Bye-bye. God bless everybody. See you later. Matulog na ako. Itatugo na kayo ko. Char. Di ba? Di dyan mahurot, guys. Ito at dalas explanations.